False alarm, I thought that help was here. But it was my own reassurance bouncing round 100,000 times in my own ecosphere. If every time you speak you keep it off the record, consequently you can keep your record clear. And if you mute the speech that shakes your frail beliefs, you only seek to insulate your image and continue down the stream in the direction clout and credit steers. Directly from your mouth into am I the asshole Reddit's ears. Directly back into the greasy pockets of some Gates Foundation financiers. And then directly back into the frantic final thoughts of early trial Neuralink volunteers, staring at the numb and mumbling vacancies where recently had been their peers. Half of whom are glitching with the memory stuck on pause, and half have zero fucking clue just who they are or why they're here. It's been said that fear is all we have to fear, but that was back before the Bezos fear condenser came along, distilling concentrated fear that's diamond pure, crystal clear, oppressor strong, and woven into every single article you read and song they let you hear. And then Elon heard that Jeff enhanced our fears by 86%, and he said, hold my beer. And not a single sheep among the herd would turn their head or say a word, cause they were all too busy begging for the shears, begging for the muzzle, happy just to guzzle, feed, and watch a screen for all their years. Man, to each his own, can't afford a home, but they'll let you have your cozy little ecosphere. Where there among your own devices you can break the seventh seal, overthrow the oracles and slay the seer. All the tomes were burned and all the lips were seared. Shut your eyes and all our lives just disappear. Now blink 'em twice. Welcome to your ecosphere.
They'll gladly pay you by the hour for a minute or so, so you can sign off on the towers where they'll piss on your home. And if you feel like you're just powerless to answer them no, it's 'cause you are. They'll gladly pay you by the hour for a minute or so, so you can sign off on the towers where they'll piss on your home. And if you feel like you're just powerless to answer them no, it's 'cause you are. It's 'cause you are. They'll gladly stagnate a living wage, snap the chains and bury it. Labor slaves in rusty cages dragged behind a chariot, led by Mr. Racial Jungle, Joseph or Iscariot, fighting over scraps as they barrage us all with variants and BuzzFeed clickbait, straight until we're paralyzed, trying to distract us from the concentration camps that Joe had swore he'd close but only chose to amplify, where they got 50-something kids in cages made for 5 to occupy. And no, she hasn't seen the camps, but Harris swears they're paradise. She tells us the facilities are safe, and that right down to the women, they are regularly sterilized. Then she throws her head back and she proceeds to laugh that sort of heartless cackle you'd expect from someone working steadfastly on behalf of the virus and a Congress full of parasites. And where was I? I was busy cashing every blue check, demonstrating plainly all the narratives expected from the verified. I was busy breeding verbal leeches by the terabyte. Train them to exsanguinate the wealthy while they sleep at night. Bleed the oil barons dry and barren, say they showed us how to share and now we share alike. Tell 'em I contracted rabies from a feral mike. Now I'm just another species losing sleep to noise pollution and these glaring lights, forced to change its habits and adapt to just survive. But now it's safe to say that some of us are thriving in the moment, throwing shit on presidential homes beneath the Paris skies. So if you feel like you're just powerless, I guess you bought the lie. But I can tell they're petrified of our collective might, 'cause I can hear those gentrifiers weeping at the sight of our collective rights. And I only can imagine the intensifying fear of knowing revolution's near, and all that's left to do is simply wallow in the thick anticipation of a rabid bite. And baby, one day you can ask your leaders just what that was like before you grab a slice. So if you think you're powerless, allow me now to change your mind. Honey, if you think you're powerless, allow me now to change your mind. See, they'll pay you hourly, tax them each apart, and build a shining tower out of loopholes and cards, and tell you that you're powerless to keep you in the dark, because you aren't, because we aren't. You see, they'll pay you hourly, tax them each apart, and make you build a shining tower out of loopholes and cards, where they'll tell you that you're powerless to keep you in the dark, because you aren't, because we aren't.
I think I liked it better being blind, when I couldn't read between the lines. And when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time, I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. I thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry.
My favorite songs don't hit the same way. I get to the end of a 4-minute track and I'm only looking back thinking, what did they actually say? So I try to sit down with my wife and watch TV, but I just see propaganda elevating the police in the simplest of sitcom banter, and tiny little altars full of offerings to corporate masters in every well-planned wide pan shot of the name brand stocking up the pantry. Pull back one long tracking shot out to the garage to the logo on the Camry. Nice tight shot of the Camry. Close-up view of the Camry, slow pan up on the Camry, long slow zoom to the unmoving human who's up in the front with the tube pumping fumes to him straight from the back of the Camry. Ashamed he just could not provide for himself, let alone for his family. It's a blue pill mindset that spent 2020 making dance beats.
I think I liked it better being blind, when I couldn't read between the lines, and when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time. I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride, and thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry.
Ignorance is bliss, which explains why a lot of us are so fucking happy. Quick to take the trip for all its trappings. Never one to ask what's up, what's going on, or God forbid what's happening. A lot of us would strap into the ride and then spit right in the eye of the guy whose job it is to snap your fastenings. But maybe we're all born with that capacity. Maybe each of us comes standard with humor, compassion, malice, and audacity.
Who are these people?
I pressed the buttons, guys. I pressed them. I swear I did. I had a funny joke and everything.
No, you didn't.
Well, it was very funny. You laughed. So yeah, last week we're on what, episode 19 of Iron and Shoes, Iron and News, everybody. Last week, you know, we got to buy all the cigarettes and flare guns the show wanted, but we don't, you know, have as fun a birthday. This went much better the first time, Colin, this joke. which much better the first time.
Well, I think that's usually how jokes work. It's usually best the first time.
But if I say it a third time, then the like comedy works in threes rule applies, right? You know,
who's in the chat, since I don't think anyone heard us welcoming our fam.
Yeah.
And so Anthony's here. Great to see you. Angela. I think
we got Nikki here.
Welcome. Hi, Nikki. Radical Leftist Agenda. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yep.
Go Start. Thank you for being here. That's all I could see at the moment.
Yep.
We're getting there's 10 of you, 9 or 10 of you in here. Which,
people are trickling in. You know.
Yeah. Please give a like at some point during this live stream and share this out to your friends, your family, whoever you care about, so that we're able to continue to grow. And thank you guys for subscribing to us. By the way, we got a huge amount of folks who subscribed, I think, over the last maybe week and a half or so.
Yeah, thanks to Tara Reid and Jesse Jett, right? Who were on.
Yeah, probably. That was a huge
Sababi Sab show. That's what I want their Jay Buffont and Savvy Sab show to be called, is Jababi Babs. You know? Jababi Sab, something like that. You know? Anyway, go. Appreciate all the people who showed up from that. You know, that was real nice of Savvy to give us so much love there. But, you know, and also go love them too. RBN has plenty of people to support. Rome's trying to build benches out here for people. He probably could use some dough for that. I want him to build them out of steel so that they can't be messed with, you know? Just bolt them into concrete somewhere. And so he's where? Detroit, right?
Yeah, he's in Detroit.
Go right over there to 8 Mile and just put that right in there. You know what I'm saying? Bolt that thing down.
So do you want to do announcements now, or do you want to wait to the end?
We'll probably wait till the end to go through the schedule. Warren has put up a little video thanking some people. And his links are, as always, in that indienews.network link tree down there. If you want to go find and support him, he could really use that. He just put up a little video on his YouTube channel. You should go check out Extra Bulla on YouTube.
Yeah. But those of you who are asking about Uncle Warren, aka Extra Bulla, he's doing okay.
We have made contact. Better. Yeah.
And he hopes to start streaming again next month. So
yes, September. So keep an eye out for that. But last night we had Tommy Nation on the channel, I think, since Tara didn't do one. Tara and Jesse, both of them will be speaking at Caleb Maupin's, what is it, the CPI or something like that? Center for Political Innovation, or
and Tara will be on
with Garland
Media with Kit Cabello on Friday.
Nice.
During their live stream on Friday, which is great.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, other than that event, and I can't think of anything. So
maybe, I think, assuming Indy comes in, he'll probably let us know if anything else that we need.
He definitely will. If not, always keep eyes on the Twitter. Including right now, there's probably a tweet out from INN saying that we're live. So people should go check that out. Down in that description below, there's that Indie News Network link, and you can find all that there. But now that everyone's clicked a like, they have a new thing where if you don't hit the like, it just cuts off the video after a certain period. So now that you do that, we can get into the stories for this evening. If I minimize this and pull up this. So, Collin, you have a rant on Nancy and her recent vacation.
That was a vacation, but we will talk about it a little bit. Although I really don't want to.
I feel you.
You know, it is important considering that we almost, well, still could, but probably would go into World War III at this point.
Yeah. So. You have a story later on Medicare for all, saving some money, right?
Well, we all know that. Yeah, we all know this, but some organization in California is actually making the case more so for it. So I kind of want to talk about that a little bit in connection to the marches for Medicare for all that happened in DC this past weekend. And then we have one of our own, Elias Sepia, who gave a little bit, he posted a clip for the marches that was played during there, so we wanted to share that with you guys, or at least a little bit with you guys as well.
We also have the a story that Tara covered recently with her on her recent episode with Brad Blankenship and Caleb Maupin, who showed up, which is on her channel. You can go check out. She talked about this a little bit with them, which at the start of our show, we played music, and luckily Brad has a band. So we got some new music that you heard this stream. That is him, as well as a great journalist, great musician, as we continue to find those. So nice of that.
Yeah.
But they talked about the attack recently on the APSP, which is the African People's Socialist
Party.
That's it. And specifically, we have the Black Alliance for Peace kind of talking about what happened as well, giving them some solidarity there. So we'll talk about that. So, Collin, you ready to get into things?
I am ready.
So let's go.
All right. So talking about our speaker who basically pulled a stunt, not told anyone that she was heading to Thailand, but she actually ended up doing so. That was the hot topic, at least over the weekend into Monday and yesterday. So this article is from Brett Wilkins, who I think Reef and I have discovered that we pull up his articles a lot because they usually are very good. And we probably should try and get him on at some point, since we feature a lot of his stuff. And he writes for Common Dreams, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. So critics call Pelosi's confirmed trip to Taiwan a dangerous war proclamation. Taiwan is China. The UN says so. The US and China have said so. Though the one anti-imperialist author, Danny Haifeng, added that Nancy Pelosi has gone full neocon to violate the one China policy. Oh.
You got it?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm still technology. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi will visit Taiwan this week. U.S. and Taiwanese officials said Monday, despite warnings from China, the Biden administration, and anti-war campaigners. Although a stop on the island, which nearly the entire international community, including the United Nations and the U.S., consider part of China, is not on Pelosi's public itinerary, a senior Taiwanese official told CNN that the California Democrat is expected to stay overnight in Taiwan, where she will reportedly meet with officials, including President Tsai Ing-wen.
Why is it you're not changing the thing? No.
It's not.
Try now. See if it goes. If not, I can reset stuff.
No, it's not working. I think it loses it after a certain point if you don't use it.
Yeah, here. In the chat up here. There you go.
Okay.
Try that one. Oh god. There we go.
Wait, did it work or?
Go back.
Nope.
Weird. Okay. Hold on.
Do you mind doing the slides?
I do not.
Okay.
Do not.
All right. Technology, folks.
Yeah.
All right.
If not, we can
Anyway.
also just do this. Hold on.
Yeah, just like that, it kicked me out. So, okay.
Yeah.
I'll try it again later, at least for the last story. Okay.
Here. Let's use this code. We'll just make sure it works, and because we haven't really even started, so.
All right. So. Oh. All right. Let's see now.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool.
That's so weird. That just kicked me out like that.
Anyway, you want to start from the top?
Yeah. You want me to try again?
Would.
All right.
That would be nice.
All right. All right. Critics call Pelosi's confirmed trip to Taiwan a dangerous war proclamation. Taiwan is China. The UN says so. The US and China have said so. Noted one anti-imperialist author, Danny Haifang, added that Nancy Pelosi has gone full neocon to violate the one China policy.
Gotcha. Did it go?
Did it work?
Apparently not. Why? Okay. What?
All right.
Sure.
Okay. All right. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi will visit Taiwan this week, U.S. and Taiwan officials said Monday, despite China, the Biden administration, and anti-war campaigners. Although a stop on the island, which nearly the entire international community, including the United Nations and the U.S., consider part of China, is not on Pelosi's public itinerary, a senior Taiwanese official told CNN that the California Democrat is expected to stay overnight in Taiwan, where she will reportedly meet with officials including President Tsai Ing-wen. At a Monday press conference in Beijing, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Liang said of his government has repeatedly made clear to the U.S. side our serious concern over Speaker Pelosi's potential visit to Taiwan, and I firm opposition to the visit. Pelosi is the third highest ranking official in the U.S. government, which means it will be highly sensitive for her to visit Taiwan no matter what, he continued, adding that such a trip constitutes gross interference in China's internal affairs. Zhao said the visit will also seriously undermine China's sovereignty and territorial integrity, wantonly trampling on the one China principle, granting threatening peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait, severely undermine China-U.S. relations, and lead to a very serious situation and grave consequences. The People's Liberation Army of China will never sit idly by, he added ominously. It will make a resolute response and take strong countermeasures to uphold China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. As for what measures, if she dares to go, then let's wait and see. So this is, so we already read this, but this is what Danny tweeted out over the weekend. As he said, Taiwan is China. The UN says so. The US and China have said so in 3 different joint communiques. It's called the One China policy, and Nancy Pelosi has gone full neocon to violate it. So continuing the article, in a Monday video commemorating the 59th birthday of Chinese People's Liberation Army, China's Eastern Theater Command vowed it was always ready to fight and would bury any invading enemies. During a Monday press conference, U.S. National Security Council Strategic Communications Coordinator John Kirby said that Pelosi would be arriving in Taiwan on a military plane while the aircraft carrier USS Ronald Reagan and other American warships operate nearby. Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense said Monday that 4 Chinese warplanes flew through the island's air defense identification zone. Last week, Hugh Juan, sorry for names, a columnist for Chinese government-owned Global Times, suggested shooting down the plane transporting the House Speaker as a last resort to prevent it from landing in Taiwan. While US President Joe Biden has said how the Pentagon officials believe Pelosi's visit is not a good idea right now, he has been criticized for not objecting more vocally to the trip. Chinese President Xi Jinping reported told Biden during a lengthy phone conversation last Thursday that those who play with fire will eventually get burned, while the American leader asserted that Congress is an independent branch of the US government whose members make their own decisions. Really?
Yep.
Anti-war voices continue to sound the alarm over a visit that numerous observers say increases the risk of a US-China war. The PLA has repeatedly warned that their fighter jets are ready to follow, intercept, electronically interfere, force a landing, or drive Pelosi's plane back, noted author and Black Agenda Report journalist Danny Haifong. This is not a drill. Pelosi's trip to Taiwan is a dangerous war proclamation.
Mm-hmm.
So this was what a tweet from the Quincy Institute. So underneath that, that U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is expected to visit Taiwan as part of her tour of Asia. And then the Quincy Institute responded, Pelosi's trip to Taiwan is such a bad idea, it's hard to know where to begin to criticize it. Quincy Institute's Dalzell60 says, it will drastically increase the chance of a crisis, even conflict with China to no good end. There are no discernible upsides to this visit, but plenty of downsides. It will perturb Beijing, potentially even provoking hawkish actions or hostilities while failing to deliver any concrete gains for the American people or Biden. The only person who stands to benefit from such a trip is Speaker Pelosi, who seems intent on burnishing her legacy as a longstanding leading critic of China, national security be damned. So, any thoughts so far, Reef, before we continue?
I mean, it's just the fact that they were willing to, like, push this, you know? Like, they didn't care at all. Like, it's very strange to me.
I don't think it's strange. I don't think it's strange considering that, you know, didn't Pelosi buy shares in computer chips, NVIDIA computer chips, like maybe a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, definitely.
So,
and they just put out their big, like, you know, conferencey stuff with, like, anyway. But yeah, no, absolutely. Like, yeah. So, right. Okay.
I mean, it's just very blatant, but I think the idea of Pelosi going under the guise of, I don't know, diplomacy and whatever is just kind of bullshit. But then, like, the other thing is, it's like, technically, you know, would we have people in government who do trips like these?
Yes.
Right?
Right,
so
you would think.
Right. So how is it? And who is Secretary of State right now? I forgot who's Secretary of State right now. If anyone in chat also knows, is it Blinken? It's Blinken.
I think so,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So why is it that if it were, like, in this case, Blinken went to Asia instead of Pelosi? That's kind of what I'm wondering. And I think that no one's necessarily talking about that either. So it just seems very weird. Not to me, but it just seems kind of asinine that Pelosi would go over to Asia and went to Taiwan despite, you know, threats from China, don't do it. And,
yeah,
you know, but she still goes anyway. And I'm pretty sure, you know, like the article says, you know, basically, you know, just to kind of prove that she can. But I feel like there's a personal motive as far as, thank you, Anthony. Yeah, it's Blinken. You know, that benefits her personally as far as, her personal wealth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anyway, continuing with the article, Ariel Gold, executive director of the Fellowship of Reconciliation and former co-director of the peace group Code Pink, lamented that one would think that while already in the midst of a Cold War that could easily turn hot with nuclear Russia, it would be prudent not to escalate within nuclear China, but unfortunately, Pelosi doesn't feel this way. Roots Action co-founder Norman Solomon wrote for Common Dreams Monday, "The arrogance of power is especially ominous and is despicable when a government leader risks huge numbers of lives in order to make a provocative move on the world's geopolitical chessboard. Nancy Pelosi's plan to visit Taiwan is in that category. Thanks to her, her chances of a military confrontation between China and the United States has spiked upward. This is the kind of leadership, added Solomon, that can get us all killed." And unfortunately, thank God,
Yeah.
at least for now, that didn't happen, and Nick Cruz, also known as Socialist MMA, from RBN, tweeted out, I believe yesterday, "Thank God for the restraint of China. China had every right to shoot that hag into the sea, but a war would destroy the global working class, and they acknowledged that. China consistently forced to be the adult in the room while the US is run by psychopaths.
Yep.
The entire world just saw the US act unbelievably reckless for no good reason. This is why the US empire is in decline and other countries are preferring to work with China. Humanity will be better off with China disrupting US unipolar dominance, and it's clear now."
Yep.
So
I think I saw Yeti in those threads as well, saying that China did this for environmental reasons, because if they had blown Nancy Pelosi up into the ocean, it would have polluted things, which is hilarious. But yeah, I mean,
I think just overall, and honestly, I didn't want to talk about this, but I think since this was top news over the past few days, we had to kind of talk about it. But I think, it just seems, give it to Pelosi, it's not a surprise that she ended up in Taiwan, but I think just blatant disregard, of the warnings of what can happen or potentially what can happen if she went.
I'm surprised the explosives that the CIA rigged on that plane to explode it over Taiwan didn't go off. That's what I'm surprised at.
Right.
Like, I'm surprised that we didn't just remember the this plane.
Right.
That would have been for nuclear Armageddon. I don't think would have been a good idea.
Well, I think, just in what Nick kind of tweeted out, I think China's aware, and it sounds like China's very aware, the global implications if they, especially with America, if they were to try something, then, the US has enough firepower to start something back with them.
Yes.
I don't think they necessarily want to do that unless it's absolutely necessary. I think this is kind of their way of saying Pelosi is not worth it, basically, to do anything with.
I think what both China and Russia tend to realize is they're much more aware of what modern warfare looks like than people think they are.
Right.
They're prepared to do just about whatever we would be able to do. They're able to implement a similar amount of force. Granted, they don't have the number, we have a much larger military, but that doesn't mean we can implement it in a region any better than they can. So I think people, the average person doesn't realize that a sudden war with China would not just be America crushing it.
Well, I think as far as numbers, I think, we have the largest military in the world, but I think, given who's in leadership in government right now, it doesn't necessarily mean that, we have the largest army in the world, but that doesn't mean we're going to be strategic as far as if we were to go into war, like what, I think just look at the wars that we've been in and over the last 2 decades, it's just basically been like, well, one, they're basically run, the main goal of it was money, number one. But 2, it wasn't like, any strategy towards what, what people were in war for. I feel like if China or even Russia were to go into war, they would with less numbers. Yeah. There'll be a little more calculating as far as look at Russia with Ukraine right now. Like Ukraine, like Russia hasn't done a whole lot, but Ukraine is tanked right now. Yeah. So, so given that, Russia or China can do a lot more, and I think can be a lot more effective with less, I think, again, just kind of speaking to Nick's tweet, I feel like if they were to go into war, they want to make sure it's absolutely necessary. And again, to start a war just due to Pelosi, just kind of like basically flipping the bird as far as what China was saying, don't come, I think,
it's like Archduke Ferdinand bullshit. Right. Like, I just feel like, for one, you look at the BRICS alliance that's happening too, which I know Medhurst talked about with this, I think, as well. Right? It's like, if you look at the amount of countries that are willing to join, what is it, BRICS, the BRICS alliance, and like they're setting up economic like walls. They're thinking about making a unified like currency there of that alliance. Like that's not good for us if you're talking strategically. Like, this is Cold War stuff where the sides are flipping. Essentially, that like we're doing Cold War nonsense. Like Reagan used to do flybys of Russia, like which essentially we're at proxy. We've been in a proxy war with Russia for ever now. As long as they can continue to stick without people wanting to press red buttons. The issue is like when you involve other countries along with China, like, and they have. They have the like. If it's, I don't think we win against Russia, China, and South America. I don't think we do. No. Like, where does Europe fall along that line too? Like, so, and we're.
I feel like in Europe it might be more of a split. In some ways. Like I could definitely, definitely like
World War II was like, right. I think if those wars have taught us anything, it's that a prolonged war with Russia never works out. It's like these people haven't played Risk before, like, anyway, speaking of, I brought this story to the table, which is from Pop Resistance, and specifically by Fight Back News, and they are talking about, in Chicago, like a couple of movements together forced the release of some Chicago police torture survivors that are like legit survivors and been proven to be so, pretty much. This is like CFIST and the NAARPR, right? The National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, and the Campaign to Free, it probably tells me right here, I hope, where is it? The Campaign to Free Incarcerated Survivors of Police Torture. Those people. So, it's not going back, is it? Why? There we go. So, in Chicago, Illinois, a series of victories was won in the past month by the movement to free survivors of fortune and wrongful conviction at the hands of Chicago Police Department Claiborne Smith, Marcellus Pittman, Juan Hernandez, and Rosendo Hernandez, Arthur Almendarez, John Galvin, Arubi Abrigo, Jeremiah Kane, David Gecht, and David Collin have all had historic judgments in their cases. So, in the case of Claiborne Smith, a decision of the Illinois Appellate Court, authored by Justice Cynthia Cobbs, reversed the decision of Circuit Court Judge Alfredo Maldonado. Jesus, I forget it's Chicago. It's all half Italians, right? Finding the detectives Kenneth Boudreaux. How'd Boudreaux get there? John Halloran and James O'Brien had tortured Claiborne Smith into his confessions. They granted him a new trial. So essentially, they got him to confess to something he didn't do.
Right.
Through torture.
Right.
In case anyone was wondering. In turn, Judge Maldonado found in the cases of Marcellus Pittman that his tortured confessions at the hands of Halloran and O'Brien was inadmissible. Marcellus Pittman also had the charges against him dropped by the state attorney's office within the written decisions by each of these judges. It was laid out plainly that these detectives with a history of torture are not credible and should not be called as witnesses. Justice Cynthia Cobbs in the Claiborne Smith case stated in her decision, the defendant has produced sufficient evidence of a pattern of physical abuse by the detectives in question, returning to Detectives Boudreaux, Halloran, and O'Brien. And Judge Roberto Maldonado stated in his decision in the Marcellus Pittman case that his ruling called into question the credibility of Halloran and O'Brien's denials. These decisions come after years of campaigning by the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression's campaign for free incarcerated survivors of police torture, mothers activating movements for abolition and solidarity, and the Chicago Torture Justice Center to free survivors of police torture and wrongful convictions and hold torturing officers accountable. In October 2021, the CAARPR began to pressure the Cook County State Attorney offices, the CCSAO, to take action on 409 cases of torture and wrongful convictions. I'll read that again for the people in the back. 490 cases of torture and wrongful convictions. That's a lot of torture. So detailed in a comprehensive report that can be found on the Chicago Alliance website. So you can go look that up if you wish. The CAARPR presented the CCSAO with 9 demands. These included that their office move to vacate convictions for all those framed, tortured, and wrongfully convicted, especially in cases involving detectives with a pattern and practice of torture, that cases involving John Burge's Midnight Crew, of which Boudreaux, Halloran, and O'Brien were a part, be reviewed and the related convictions vacated, and that the CCSAO publicly state that they will cease calling detectives with established records of torture as witnesses. These recent rulings directly reflect the campaign's demands. Another demand of the campaign was for the CCSAO to provide information on the status of their promised comprehensive review of Guevara's cases, rapidly complete the review, and vacate all convictions. And when detectives Ronaldo Guevara, Joseph, you want to try that one? Miedzinianowicz? No, the next one. Try the next one.
Oh. No.
See, people, this is difficult. I'm going to go with Miedzinianowicz.
Ski is the last part.
Yeah.
That's all I could say.
Miedzinianowski. Anyway.
Okay.
Or Ronald Watts were involved. So those detectives. I imagine this guy goes as Joe M. Right? Because no one could pronounce his last name. Officer. Sure. Detective Joe M. Ronaldo Guevara is a former homicide detective who secured dozens of convictions by framing mostly Puerto Rican and black young people. According to the report, over 50 individuals have accused him of coercing confessions through physical or psychological torture or through manipulating witnesses to obtain convictions. Many of them were juveniles at the time of the arrest. Thoughts so far, Collin? Like,
I mean, well, this is Chicago PD, so aren't they notorious for doing like shady shit anyway?
Yes. Yeah.
But I think the idea, like, you know, they were torturing people who didn't commit any crimes, basically. You know, like, only for now. Like, I didn't read this article, but like, do you know how long they were locked in jail for?
I think one of the guys was like a year or so, right? Like it was fairly fresh. I think it might say in the rest of the article. But I mean, it's 409 convictions of like torture by these assholes. Like, how many lives were ruined by that?
Right. Right.
You know?
But I think it's just the idea of, and I think it's not surprising considering, you know, like what we've seen, you know, within the last 3 years, you know, with cops, you know, it's basically the way that they, you know, arrest people or, you know, like try to handle, you know, especially Black people in terms of justice is, I wouldn't necessarily call it torture, but, you know, you can kind of equivocate it to this.
Yeah.
You know, it's the idea of like, you know, like a person's running away, then cops feel like, oh, okay, you know, unarmed, like cops feel it's okay, you know, to shoot them dead, you know, like, you know, person like, you know, coming out of a car, you know, obviously not trying to start any mess, and then cops feel like, oh, it's okay for me to rough you up to the
escalate
point where, like,
and
to the point where like you get seriously hurt, you know, like, you know, you're trying to bring in people who obviously didn't commit crimes, so you're going to torture them so that they will just kind of give in. You know, so I think this is just kind of the whole idea, just as far as the police system, you know, in this country in general, is just basically all fucked up. But it's not designed, you know, it's not really designed for just, at least for the working class, at least. This just kind of shows like, you know, more so like if you're within the working class, you know, under the cops, you know, especially if you're a person of color, then you really aren't worth shit. So, so it's not surprising, but I think especially given that it's Chicago, definitely not surprising at all.
Fucking Chicago. Like, yeah, this is like fucking old mob fucking, like, anyway, you know. This is like classic crooked cop. I mean, you're welcome to ask the Hardlands media people, you know, and Elias, who also lives in Chicago, how the, you know, Chicago PD operate.
Right.
But yeah, it's just funny that this is, I'm wondering what the precedent will be going further, right? Like in other places, if this could be used, if you can prove that there was counts of torture, you know. Right. Like, which I'm sure is not that hard, in all honesty.
But I think in this story, you know, the positive in this is that people had to organize in order to turn this around. So it wasn't done by government or politicians. This was done by regular people, you know. So I think it's just kind of showing like, if organizations in coalitions can come together, you know, to fight a greater good, then, you know, then that could be more if it's worth in gold versus, you know, waiting for a politician to do something. So, so I think even in the midst of the shit within the story, that's the one positive thing that
I'm sure
the situation turned around, not for because anyone in government made them happen. It was through basically direct action through
these organizations. Right. And I hope more places like that. I hope this isn't just a regional thing to Chicago. I hope there's more organizations that work on things like that out there to support. But so the Cook County judge, Obish, said Guevara has now eliminated the possibility of being considered a credible witness in any proceeding due to the evidence against him and his refusal to testify. This is a judgment that is now being applied to other torture cops such as Boudreaux, Halloran, and O'Brien. So the leading force behind the effort to free survivors of Detective Guevara has been the organization Innocent Demand Justice, IDJ, which is led by Guevara survivors themselves, as well as family members like Esther Hernandez, who has been fighting for the freedom of her two sons, Juan Pucci Hernandez and Rosendo Hernandez, since their wrongful imprisonment in 1997. Along MAMAS and the CAARPR and the CTJC IDJ mobilized rallies for court dates, hosted phone zaps, pressured elected officials, met with state attorney's office, researched Guevara thoroughly, and spoke out in the media. These organizations demanded justice for all of Guevara's victims, meaning immediate release, charges against Guevara, and reparations for those tortured. Wow. I mean, like, I'm digging the energy here. On Friday, July 15th, the Hernandez brothers were released with all charges dropped against them. This came as part of a wave of exonerations of Guevara's survivors, including Ruby Abrigo, Jeremiah Kane, David Collin, and David Gecht. The release of these survivors and the decisions by the state attorney's office to not retry them for these baseless charges are a result of the movement to free torture survivors and the wrongfully convicted. Esther Hernandez responding to her son's release saying, "I can't even explain how I feel right now. I'm so joyful," she added. "As I come to these other cases, I see them come home. I'm like, oh my God, our day is coming. I get happy every time I see somebody come out, an innocent man coming out of prison." I mean, more of this, please.
Yeah, more of this. But yeah, as I said, like, it's a shitty story, but at least it has a good outcome. Yeah. You know, but that only came about from working people coming together. And, you know, like, this is organizing what it looks like. You know, like, you can make the argument whether this is mobilization or organization, but it sounds like here, you know, there are steps. I think moving forward, this can be potentially something, you know, I think kind of building off what you were saying, like, that doesn't just stop, or at least it's not just a regional thing, you know, in terms of this just happening in Chicago. Like, ideally, what should be happening is, like, this can spread, you know, more across the country, you know, because it's not just Chicago where there's crooked cops, you know, especially, and I'm sure there's, like, other cities, you know, that cops are doing something like this, but it's not necessarily being reported on. Yeah. So it's kind of sad that, you know, we have to get this story from independent, you know, news stories, and this hasn't been mentioned at all in the mainstream media.
No.
Like, we know why, but surprise, surprise.
I'd love to see Hardlands, which I'll send them this article and stuff after this, but I'm sure Ed Heller, who will be in the chat later if he's not now, if you guys can reach out to any of these people for us, I would appreciate it for you know, follow up. That would be nice.
Yeah, but
any of those organizations,
as far as the organization that around this, that, you know, and it sounds like basically most of the people who were involved were people of color. So, so the idea that people got together in their different organizational groups, banded together, and really worked to ensure that, you know, their families were out, you know, got out of jail, you know, like, but I feel along with that, there should be, like, retribution for the cops as well. Like, I think that's the only thing I was missing in your article is, like, what will happen to these cops, you know? So, so I think, honestly, like, I would love to know, you know, more of what happened with this, but I think this should be, oh, you had more to this slide?
There's a little bit. I just wanted to stop on that because Jesus. In addition to survivors of Boudreaux, Halloran, O'Brien, and Guevara being released, 2 survivors of Detective Victor Switsky and John Hannaran were released the following day. John Galvin and Arthur Almendarez were wrongfully convicted in 1986. 1986! So you were asking how long some of these people have been in here for? There's one of them. How long's that? 1986 to now?
That's over 25 years.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. After Hannaran and Switsky tortured them into signing...
Actually, more than that. More than that, actually.
Oh, that's even worse.
Yeah.
Into signing confessions, statements to a crime they didn't commit, the detectives told them that they would be able to go home after signing these confessions. They made many attempts to file motions for their witness confessions to be suppressed and quash the arrest. They were sentenced for life without parole, with Galvin being sent to Stateville and Almendarez to Hill prisons. New evidence emerged of police coercion, and after 35 years, their case was finally vacated by a Cook County judge. 35 years. They were sentenced to life without parole.
For a crime they didn't commit.
Oh, Jesus. What the fuck is wrong with Chicago?
Well, not the fuck is wrong with Chicago. What the fuck is wrong
America?
With America.
Everywhere.
Yeah, this is not limited to just Chicago. This is America. You know? So, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think, just like I said, this gives more, and I think we've talked about this, you know, I think especially, you know, with indie, like we want to highlight, you know, stories where people are organizing and getting together and to trying to make change, you know. So you know, so I think obviously the rest of the stories that we're covering tonight, you know, do kind of reflect some of that. But I think, you know, again, this is just like, you know, I think this should be an encouragement to people who are watching that, you know, because it can be disheartening sometimes to organize, especially when people are, you know, against you, you know, for certain things, or kind of, you know, minimize what you're trying to do. But I think this is the idea of like, one, you can't do this work by yourself. You have to do this type of organization with other people who, you know, share your vision as well, but also just the understanding of what you're going to go up against. I'm pretty sure that these people kind of knew, you know, and that they had to really kind of plan and strategize, you know, what the next steps would be, but it didn't stop. You know, the idea that they were at this for, by the sound of it, over 30 years, you know, like, I think it's crazy, but at the same time, it just shows when you're organizing, you have to be willing to, and I've said this before on the show, you know, like you have to be willing to possibly give up your life in order to see justice, you know, in whatever you're seeking to be better.
So, in addition to survivors of Boudreaux, Halloran, O'Brien, and Guevara being released, 2 survivors, we read that one, sorry.
Yeah.
So detectives Hannaran and Switsky were also mentioned in the CAA RPR's CFIST report, and the pattern and practice of torture within the Chicago Police Department. The CFIST report not only clearly demonstrates a long pattern of abuse by crooked officers, but how innocent lives will continue to be lost and harmed, the victims and their families. The long pattern of abuse will not stop unless community control of the police is established and all wrongfully convicted prisoners are given immediate release, said Kobe Gullery at a rally outside the Cook County Jail in response to this wave of decisions. These victories in the campaign to free incarcerated survivors of police torture and wrongful conviction are a sign that the powers that be are responding to the demands of the survivors, families, and activists who continue the fight for justice. So,
basically,
yeah, I mean,
defund the police.
Yes. Yep.
Just a very like subtle way of saying defund the police.
Yeah.
So,
and also that the community has to be a part of policing them. Like, right. You know.
Well, you see that generally in affluent neighborhoods, you know, generally, like, you know, the police that generally police there, not always, but usually live in those neighborhoods, know the people within those neighborhoods, and they're just kind of a part of the fabric, you know, within those neighborhoods. That's not necessarily the case in low income, you know, like, so they're not, you know, they're not part of the neighborhood. They're outsiders within the neighborhood. They don't know the, you know, the situations of like why people do certain things or like the makeup of the neighborhood. So there's a lot of distrust, you know, to begin with. But the idea that a lot of these cops have a chip on their shoulder, you know, like as far as, you know, essentially beating, you know, people who they feel like are in the wrong, you know, and because of their power, like they can just do whatever they want to the detriment of people and families, you know, in the name of, you know, policing, you know, I think, you know, it's just very wrong. But as I said, you know, just shows, you know, the power of organization, what it can do, and how, like, you know, I have to say from Kwame Ture, like, organization is eternal, you know, so like in this case, you know, I'm sure they're going to, hopefully they continue to organize, you know, around this issue, and I hope it expands, you know, outside of Chicago too. But as I said, it's just interesting how we have to find this in like media, independent news, and this is not necessarily shared, you know, in mainstream, you know, especially given what's been happening that mainstream media does cover, you know, they're not necessarily countering with stories like this that shows the power of organizing, which I'm sure that's probably why that mainstream media is not going to cover a story like this, because it just, we don't want to give people ideas of what they can do, you know? And also it just shows like you don't need a politician to do the work for you.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. But shout out to Indie News. You know, if you look up his website, which is in the descriptions below, if you look at that Indie News network, but Indie Left's websites, which we get almost all of our stories from, compiled there for you, including this one, which nice of people to have, you know, that outlet there, and him compiling some of the best stories out there, in my opinion. So, but yeah, at least, you know, people are getting out from this. That's my only, like, like, you know,
power lies within us, friends.
Yeah. As Jesse Jett would like to tell us.
Right.
But anyway, someone said in the chat that, where was it? That they hadn't seen any updates for the ASP. What is it? The ASPS, right? And the FBI. Yeah. I haven't seen any updates of the African Socialist Party's offices, homes. Yep. We're going to have a bit of that. I also wanted to shout out Anna Mayers on the Rockfin, tipped us $10. Appreciate that. I seriously can't with the hopium about M4A anymore. Sure, other countries didn't kill their citizens like America did by treating every illness as for-profit commodity or tie their jobs to the ability to see the white coat big pharma pushers, but how short-sighted are we? Did we not see medical tyranny tested in real time? Did people not lose their jobs if they're refused an experimental drug? Yeah, I think my thing is, like, I definitely wouldn't trust this government too. That's usually my response. You know, if like Collin was running it, maybe, you know, like, but smart people aren't going to be running that right now. So, but anyway,
smart people who don't have an agenda.
Yes. And also make sure that the certain limitations and also, you know, like exemptions are made. Like, you just need doctors that actually know what they're talking about. But anyway,
moving on to the next story.
Yep, which should be the update on the African People's Socialist Party.
Socialist Party.
Yeah. If I just say that a few more times, I think I'll remember it, you know? But we have the always funny Jimmy Dore with a quick clip about, you know, just to get everyone kind of up to speed on where things are at. So we'll play that and we'll be back to it. No sound.
About Ukraine, and they got raided by the FBI. FBI raids St. Louis Black Liberation Group alleging Russian ties. Here it is. They're just doing it. Federal investigators raided the offices and homes of leaders involved with local Black Liberation Group under suspicion of Russian collusion early Friday morning. Officials of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement and African People's Socialist Party said the FBI performed a violent raid with flash grenades and drones around 5 a.m. Friday morning. At a news conference Friday, Chairman Omar Yeshitadala said he and his wife were handcuffed during the raid as investigators searched their home. He said the FBI threw flash grenades into his home and performed the raid without knocking. Oh, it's one of those no-knock things.
Wow.
So they're still doing that.
How far we've come.
Wow. Yeshitela said the FBI believes the Uhuru movement and African People's Socialist Party may somehow be involved with Russia's tampering in U.S. elections.
Notice how no liberals freaked out when they do a no-knock warrant raid on a bunch of black people because they're socialists.
They're right.
Allegedly tied to Russia.
This is like drug dealer treatment.
Yep.
They treat drug dealers better than that.
I know. Too bad they didn't have any drugs. Maybe buy some better treatment that you could get.
What they have claimed is that they are indicting someone, a Russian nationalist who is a Russian, Yeshitela said. They have claimed that they were investigating the African People's Socialist Party that I lead in the Uhuru movement because of some association that we might have with the Russian government. According to a federal indictment obtained by the Times, Alexander Viktorovich Lanov is alleged to have worked with unnamed officers of Russia's Federal Security Service to use members of U.S. political groups as foreign agents of Russia. So, I mean, of course they're doing this. This is all... I told you all they have to do is say you're a terrorist and they can take your rights away and do anything they want and lock you up indefinitely. And all they got to do is say you're working with Russia and they can fucking do this too. And they're doing it to black socialists.
Yeah, so thoughts so far, Collin?
I mean, it's funny, you know, just being a black person that I could be accused of working with Russians, and that will give police or the FBI excuse to raid my house.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, I don't. It's crazy. I think it's crazy in theory, but considering, you know, the times we live in, no.
That group of social.
But of course, you know, it kind of leads into the previous story. You know, like these are socialist groups who happen to be of color. So, and we've seen this in history. You know, think of the Black Panthers, for example. You know, like government considers them a threat.
Yeah.
So of course, you know, like, and I'm sure these groups know that. So, you know, given the history, you know, but I think it's just funny that how people might associate, you know, oh, what happened to the Black Panthers and even Martin Luther King and Malcolm X? That happened, you know, like ages ago. That's not going to happen now. No, like it's still happening.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, that's just kind of where my thought went. It's just like, I think if you're considered revolutionary, you know, this is on par for the course for you. Like this should be an expectation, you know, that you don't have stuff like this happen to you.
Yeah. Which is anyway. So another organization spoke out on this attack happening. Which is just, it's real McCarthyite in nature at this point. But so the Black Alliance for Peace, otherwise known as the BAP or BAP, unequivocally condemns and opposes the latest domestic U.S. state repression and intimidation tactic currently being leveled against the African People's Socialist Party, the APSP. So on Friday, July 29th, 2022, the FBI executed multiple raids against APSP's Uhuru House in St. Petersburg, Florida, and their Uhuru Solidarity Center in St. Louis, Missouri, and the private residence of the APSP chairman, Omali Yeshitela. Also in St. Louis, the FBI employed flashbang grenades and handcuffed Yeshitela and his wife. While their house was raided, the FBI claims that the raids are connected to the federal indictment of a Russian national, Alexander Ionov, alleging that he has been working to spread Russian propaganda in the United States. BAP believes that these raids continue the history of state repression directed against black people in the U.S. This repression now occurs under the guise of opposing adversary nations, but regardless of how these actions are characterized, black people still bear the brunt of surveillance and police violence. The APSP has the right to freely associate with people around the world, to hold any political beliefs it may choose, and to express them without fear of intimidation, persecution, or prosecution. We believe this repression to be a hysterical response to the United States' loss of legitimacy in the context of a deepening crisis of capitalism and U.S. global hegemony. The unleashing of policing and counterintelligence forces domestically and increased militarism and warmongering abroad in the name of national security are the only avenues left to the U.S. ruling class that is engulfed in an irreversible economic crisis. They represent the hallmarks of a naked fascism that the U.S. ruling class appears to be increasingly committed to in order to maintain the rule of capital. BAP reminds the public that the war against working class people generally and black, brown, and indigenous workers particularly is ongoing. The masses must acknowledge and resist this reality. While it is APSP today, it will ultimately be the rest of us tomorrow. Resistance is our only option. Thoughts, Collin?
Didn't I just basically say that earlier?
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is history repeating itself,
Yeah.
But I think it just goes to show how much we need to, and I think this is my frustration. I've shared this many times, on this show. I think we organize, but not know the history of the organization of people that came before. So like, I'm sure for these people, they were just like, okay, yeah, you know, but anyone who is not aware that this is what should be happening would be more like, I think, more surprised. And it really shouldn't be. I think in terms of, the idea that the FBI would do something like this. But again, like, if you're considered a revolutionary, you are a threat to the government, because you undermine, the stakes of what capitalism and imperialism mean, to this country, as well as basically in the West. So it shouldn't be surprising, but I think it just goes to show you, like, this has been happening, honestly, as old as time, basically. Like, people who resist are going to get pushed back, from government. We see it throughout history, and you're seeing it now. So yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be surprising, but I think, I think this should be an example for people that this is what you come up against when you resist against, the powers that be.
So BAP continues, given our steadfast commitment to rebuilding the broader anti-war, anti-imperialist peace movement, BAP is not intimidated and will not retreat. We are guided by the position articulated by the Black is Back coalition, of which BAP is a proud member, that now is the time to throw off all hesitation, open up new forms of struggle, and to launch every protest, demonstration, and anti-imperialist action from the ballot box to the barricades. As an act to deepen the crisis of imperialism, the treatment of the APSP is reminiscent of McCarthyist witch hunts that targeted and criminalized workers, immigrants, and colonized people who organized domestically and internationally against capitalist imperialism. Likewise, the FBI's actions represent COINTELPRO-like tactics employed to crush organizations and individuals fighting to protect and expand the rights of oppressed people in general and Africans in particular. These tactics come back forcefully in response to the 2014 uprisings in Ferguson, Missouri. FBI agents tracked the movements and monitored the individuals tied to the protests. In 2016, with the murder of Freddie Gray, ignited protests in Baltimore. The FBI admitted to providing an aircraft for surveillance in the weeks following the unrest. In 2017, the FBI created the designation Black Identity Extremist to monitor black movement organizers. The term was updated to racially motivated violent extremism in 2018. FBI surveillance was rampant going into the summer 2020 rebellions, with FBI agents attempting to infiltrate protests in Portland. The black population of the United States has historically stood at the forefront of resistance and condemnations of war and state repression. In this spirit, the Black Alliance for Peace reiterates the critical moral stance against such government aggressions and stands in resolute solidarity with the APSP. So, by comprehensively linking the issue of state violence and militarism, BAP will continue to concentrate its efforts on not only opposing the U.S. war agenda globally, but the war and repression being waged on black and brown communities within U.S. borders. In this charge, the Black Alliance for Peace says there will be no compromise and no retreat, which is a statement from the BAP Coordinating Committee. So, I think that sounded great. Someone's decent writer over there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I saw no faults for the most part.
I saw no faults either, but again, just to kind of say it again, you do revolutionary work. This is what you can expect will happen to you. So, but I think if you know your history, you can expect you are going to get some pushback from government officials, FBI, whoever it is. So I think it's just the idea of knowing, okay, if this happens, what do we do? Right. Versus being surprised at it. So
if any of the audience can reach out to any of those organizations, be happy to talk to people from them as well. But yeah, crazy. But last story for the night. I think you brought some stuff, right?
Last story for the night. Hold on, I just need to check the slides. So, because I have to play catch up. It's 38.
Yep.
Oh, I caught up on his own. Okay, so last slide. Somewhat. I think like these stories, other than the first one, had some good points. So, to kind of continue with that. So a little update, regarding Medicare for All. So for those of you who know or may not be aware, so the Marches for Medicare for All started last year. What was initially going to be just concentrated in DC ended up being, I want to say, it happened in over 50 towns/cities across the United States, where people like from different states marched in the name of for Medicare for All. So they had, their second march only in DC this year over the weekend. So our friend, colleague to INN, Elias Sepia, who is a writer, was asked to make a video that they shared at the march. So we wanted to give him some love. and play a little bit with you, and then just show you guys a brief snippet of the marches in DC and what was happening there. So let's see if this works.
I might have to play.
Yeah.
Thank you for allowing me to give my brief address in absentia during this grand week of in-person gathering and work. I'm always amazed by the sacrifice in pursuit of a better future brave comrades like you all make with your activism. I am also struck by the modesty of the request and the patience and good faith with which it is being made. I speak now to any and all national elected officials who are witnessing our demonstrations this week and considering your demand. These people who have convened in Washington this week are politely making a reasonable and moderate demand: Medicare for all. Contrary to how its opponents in both major American parties characterize it, Medicare for all is not so bold and compassionate an idea as to qualify as socialism. That is to say, Medicare for all is merely a type of publicly funded health insurance program that would leave a great deal of our failing privatized patchwork of a system in place. In a less barbarously managed nation, there would be more hope that we could simply move straight into the realm of the civilized, jettison health insurance of all types, and demand a true national health system, where all residents of this, the richest country in the history of the world, could avoid middlemen and have direct healthcare access 24/7, every day of every year. Still, these moderate, patient people congregating in our capital realize that given the dire situation we're in, any sweeping reform that results in improved health outcomes is worth working for. And to be certain, the situation is desperate, especially for people of color, and Medicare for all would help us. 30 million people currently don't have health insurance at all in America, and tens of millions more have health insurance so meager that they can't even afford to actually get medical care when they need it. As it stands, millions of people who do have health care of some sort have it tied to their employment. And at a time where workers are experiencing diminishing purchasing power and job security, that type of arrangement is particularly cruel. All of the truly existential problems caused by being uninsured or underinsured are felt disproportionately by people of color, including Latin people. People of color account for over half of the non-elderly uninsured population in the U.S., despite being just over 40% of the overall population. Both Latin and Black people are uninsured at much higher rates than white people, and Latin people are the single most uninsured population in the country. Right now, in America, millions of undocumented Americans who make the country better by simply being in it, and many of whom make it run by growing, picking, and cooking and serving our food, tending to our stores, caring for our children, and countless other essential jobs, and who all pay higher amounts of taxes per capita than the general population does, who also have lower rates of criminality than the general population, do all this without basic protections and benefits that they've earned, including health care.
Okay. So thank you, Elias, for sharing that. I mean, that's not the whole thing. If you want to, we should probably share his Twitter in the
I got it.
In the chat. So like if you want to follow him on Twitter, you can. Or if you want to watch the rest of it, it's about 9 minutes long.
In the
It's
chat.
also available on YouTube. So cool. Thank you, Reef. And so let's go to the next slide.
Yep, I got you.
People die! People die! People
Hey, I know those ladies.
What do we want? Medicare for all! When do we want it? Now! Insurers deny! People die! Insurers deny! People die! Hey, Humana, what do you say?
Today.
Hey, Humana, what do you say? How many people have you killed today?
healthcare is a human right? Healthcare is a human right?
Yeah.
Let me know if I'm going to run it in here. Healthcare is a human right. Healthcare must be free from corporate profit. And finally, healthcare can only be achieved through national legislation. Medicare for all. Thank you.
You want to talk about your sign?
Yes. My representative is Nancy Pelosi. She's the Speaker of the House, and she's the person that is preventing Medicare for All bill, HR 1987, from being voted on in the House. So I hold her personally responsible for not bringing Medicare for All to a vote.
And what is your critique to people who say, you hold her personally responsible, we should spend more energy talking about the Republicans? What is your critique to them?
No, Republicans need health care too. Everybody supports Medicare for All. Republicans, Democrats, it's a nonpartisan issue. This is not about the Republicans. This is not about the Democrats. This is about the demand that people have for Medicare for All.
Love it. Shout out to all the organizers for the March for Medicare for All. You know, it sounds like it was a great time over the weekend. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go, but it seems like, of course, you know, it's been hard to topple what happened last year, but considering the circumstances, it sounds like it was a great time on Saturday for those of you who for those who attended. I'm sure it's going to happen again next summer. So mark your calendars for like late July 2023. I'm sure there's going to be another one in DC next year. So anyway, I mean, our audience, I'm sure, you know, you guys know this, you know, Medicare for All saves money. You guys don't need to be told this, but there's just more proof, you know, from organizations in California that are saying that most people, if in California, if they were to have Medicare for All, will actually save money. So once again, this article is by Ralph Wilkins. Working together, Californians can save our state billions, save each family thousands, and most importantly, guarantee health care for all so that everyone has equal access to life-saving treatment.
You got it? Or you want me to?
Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Universal healthcare campaigners in California on Monday unveiled a tool that shows how most working families would save at least hundreds and likely thousands of dollars each year if the state implements a Medicare for All type system. The advocacy group Healthy California Now, together with National Union of Healthcare Workers and University of California San Francisco professor and health finance expert James G. Kahn, launched a calculator that compares what individuals or families currently spend with what their costs would be under the type of Medicare for All system that Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom campaigned on a promise to enact, but has done nothing to advance. It's a new day for healthcare reform in California, and working together, Californians can save our state billions, save each family thousands, and most importantly, guarantee healthcare for all so that everyone has equal access to life-saving treatment. Healthy California Now President Michael Lighty said in a statement, "Every second of inaction costs hundreds of dollars, and each year of inaction has an even greater cost, 4,000 lives." According to the calculator, a family earning California's median annual household income of $78,600 and paying $500 in monthly health insurance premiums and $4,000 in yearly out-of-pocket costs, whose employer contributes $1,400 per month towards healthcare costs, would save nearly $16,500 every year under a Medicare for All system. An individual making $50,000 a year with a $300 monthly health insurance bill, a $500 employer pay-in, and $1,500 in self-funded healthcare expenditures would save $7,600 annually. So this is their tweet. The moment we've all been waiting for is here. We are so excited to launch a project that our team has been working on, our healthcare savings calculator. We want you to be the first to try it, share it, and tell us what you'll save. So that's a link to the calculator there if you're interested. For an uninsured person or family earning under $50,000 with less than $2,500 in out-of-pocket healthcare spending, savings would range from hundreds to around $2,000 per year. Taxpayers already foot the bill for over 70% of our state's healthcare, Khan said in a statement. The savings we can achieve by cutting the waits in private health insurance will allow us to guarantee improved healthcare services for all Californians while also lowering costs. Our estimates of spending under a universal healthcare system account for the added taxes required to cover that single-payer budget, while premiums and out-of-pocket costs disappear, he added. Overall spending for single-payer will be less than under the current system, and taxes will be higher only for the very high-income earners and corporations. But the vast majority of working families will save money. Although he campaigned on the pledge to deliver single-payer healthcare, Newsom has disappointed activists by backing away from his promise and taking hundreds of thousands of dollars in campaign contributions for the private health insurance industry. In January, AB 1400, a bill that would have implemented a single-payer healthcare system in California, was withdrawn from consideration in the state assembly, an 11th-hour move that shocked and outraged progressives who have fought for the measure. While Newsom has expressed concerns over the cost of universal care, the Governor's Healthy California for All Commission reported in April that such a system would save 4,000 lives annually and $500 billion over the next decade. $500 billion over the next decade, sorry. Meanwhile, the commission found that healthcare costs are projected to rise 30% over the next 10 years under the current system. The door to quality, universal, and affordable healthcare is open, he wrote. On the other side is a California where we save lives and save money by cutting out waits and bureaucracy and putting quality healthcare before private insurance company profits. A 2020 study published in the medical journal Lancet found that Medicare for All on a national scale would save Americans $450 billion and prevent 68,000 unnecessary deaths each and every year. Last month, Common Dreams reported that a universal single healthcare payer system such as Medicare for All could have prevented over 338,000 U.S. COVID-19 deaths.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, this is not new to most of, not all of us here, but just giving more proof that we need to have Medicare for All.
Nice.
Any thoughts, Reef?
That we're doing well on time. But other than that, like, yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't trust California necessarily to do great, like, healthcare either, especially if it's state funded, but like, it obviously would, you know, I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, it just shows off how terrible the state really is, because if they actually were trying to do something, you know, like, you would think that if you wanted to actually work out a pandemic, something where people could afford healthcare would be a good idea, you know, and like didn't have to pay for healthcare, like, would probably be smart. But
which we could under a public health emergency, which I'm sure COVID-19 will fall under that. You can maybe also count this monkeypox, whatever
that is,
you know, I'm sure it probably won't get to national public emergency, I'm sure, but you know, you can almost kind of point that as well, as a public health emergency. If I think Biden had the balls to do that, but of course he won't, because he's tied to corporate interests and the private health insurance agency, that he's not going to do that. So
yeah,
but again, like I said, this is nothing new to you guys. We know that Medicare for All, well, personally, I'm for nationalizing healthcare, because Medicare for All is basically the compromise still, because it still involves private health insurance companies, you know, like, and I know there's going to be a lot of mistrust as far as the government, you know, handling, you know, like healthcare. But that would be the most ideal to ensure that people are getting the healthcare that we need, you know, without having to worry about all these extra fees and costs that are associated with that.
I agree. But yeah, that's our show for this evening, everybody. You know, let us know in the comments which story you like the most. You know, But tomorrow I have no idea what we're doing. Go ahead.
Thursday, no. Yeah,
Yeah.
Friday is Tari will be, as we said earlier, on Holland's Media with Kit to talk about the conference she's going to in Chicago with Caleb Moffman and other folks all over the weekend. And I believe Jesse Jett is also going to be at that conference as well.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, guys, if you haven't listened to, Indy produced, a music video to Jesse's song Powerless. If you haven't seen it, find it on YouTube. I'm sure Reef will also probably put that link in the chat. Please follow it.
Yeah.
Love it, share it, give Jesse some love. It's gotten, great response already, but definitely, show Jesse, some love, especially since he put in a lot of work in his album as well. So support him and support the work that he's trying to kind of raise the consciousness of those, who are trying to do the right thing by people and trying to advocate for people.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Sunday, how do we miss that? Friday, Reefer After Dark, if I can schedule guests this week, which I'm working on.
We're trying to work on, actually today would have been, we were hoping that we're going to do a special interview. Didn't happen, obviously. So
we're working on stuff there.
We're working on stuff. We're trying to work on different interviews that we can do or get it, or people to come in for INN News within the next few weeks. So, just
we might have
us.
to pre-record some of that too, and go through and do that kind of stuff. We'll see. So stay tuned. Go down to that indienews.network link, which you'll see scrolling across the page there. And also down in the description below to follow all the social media accounts for the network, as well as going into that Meet the Member section and sharing and supporting all the members of INN. You'll be able to find links and ways to do that there. Anything else, Collin?
No, thank you guys for liking us, sharing us. Please subscribe to us. We definitely have been seeing a huge growth over the last couple of weeks. There was something else I wanted to say. Oh yeah, if there are any particular stories that you would like us to talk about on INN News, please share them with Reef and I. Our Twitter, our informations are in the description. Obviously we pick stories that either make sense given, the news of the week, or stuff that I think tries to uplift the organizing that is happening around the country. We definitely want to uplift that, but at the same time, we also know there are other stories, that we want to highlight. So if there are any stories in particular that you guys want us to, let us know. We hope to
tag INN News, capital INN, lowercase news, and put that, and we can showcase the tweet. So
we definitely want to highlight issues or stories that affect you guys, that we can report on.
We might do
so much we can get from
INN lightning round, and go through a couple of those, So, but anyway, appreciate everyone for coming. As always, labels are bad. Please stay independent. Good night, fam.
Good night. See you.
We're out.